Again, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming out of recess, and I did, on one of our folks that signed in, I did overlook him, and that's Mark T. Coulter. And if you would please come on up, state your name for the record, and please sign in if you would, sir, and I apologize for that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's ironic, the overlooked citizenry.
Well, wasn't that on purpose?
You were very kind about it, thank you. Mark Coulter, I live on Ramsey Road here in Monroeville, and appreciate your time this evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. I'm here this evening with a couple of issues, one very specific and one more general in nature. On the specific, I'm here to report a crime, a theft, because I feel as though one of our valuable assets here in Monroeville has been stolen from us by people, and we don't think we have a right to have it be taken away. Doug Cole has been a tremendous asset in this community. I'm relatively a rookie here. You know, I don't have my 20-year pin in Monroeville yet, but I'm getting close. But as I listen to the room, all these people who know him and see his work and the things he does and appreciate what he does, and the fact that we don't hear a complaint from anybody, I think speaks volumes to him. In my own interactions with him, he's always been professional. He's clearly showed his intelligence and compassion with people in the community. He's been hardworking. I've had the privilege to see him in social situations, and it's always beeping or ringing or something, and he has to go off and deal with something. He's a public servant, and he serves. And I've heard no explanation of why I don't have him anymore. And I miss him, and I feel it's been taken from me unfairly. You know, when you take something like that from the community, when you take something like that from the community, you steal from us, and we look for a reason, and we say why. And we haven't heard a why. We hear without cause. We hear no further explanation need be forthcoming. Well, respectfully, on behalf of the overlooked populace here, I think we need an explanation. To say that, well, where we have a new administration come in, they have a right to make these changes. Well, I think that's, candidly, just an artificial argument, because we don't have a new administration coming in. We have an interim manager that's just putting the finger in the hole until we get a real manager back in place. There is no interim administration that comes in and right out of the gate starts firing heads of departments and things like that. You can't tell me that this lady was sitting at home going, boy, if I ever get to be manager, first thing I'm going to do is change the chief of police, because that's important to me. Okay? She was put in there with a mission, and that mission was given to her, near as I can tell from council. I can't have any other supposition because I'm not getting much more feedback, except very candidly what Mr. Duncan was kind enough to share with us, which unfortunately just confirms our suspicions, okay? That this was a plot, you know, and it was a plot directed at Doug, and yet we haven't heard why. We lost a manager, we paid him hush money because they wanted rid of Doug for some reason. All I've heard is people say how wonderful Doug is, and I haven't heard anybody give us an explanation of why we've lost this man. I look forward to that. That's going to be an interesting discussion. I think you've really usurped the duties of the manager and tried to take those on yourself. That's why you have a manager. And instead you're trying to get in and, as we've heard, micromanage this situation. The other problem I have, of a more general concern, is the lack of apparent accountability that we see on council. It's very important in government that we have a sense of transparency so we can see and evaluate what you're doing. And is it proper, and is it fair, and does it represent what I want done? And that's the purpose of transparency. Because as citizens, we don't get to go to these little backroom meetings. We don't get to have the little private discussions that you have. We have to judge you on what we see. And what we see as a community is a manager that you hired and vetted and paid a lot of money to, and he had a chief of police that we all had a lot of faith in. And then we see, because we read, that somebody wanted that chief of police fired. And you couldn't get him fired through the manager you had in place. And you coerced him, and you couldn't break him, okay? But you managed to bend him enough that he stepped away. So you could put somebody in that you had already had the plan in place to have a new, different chief in place. That's not transparency, okay? People aren't willing to stand up here on council and say, yeah, we did that, and here's why we did it. That's what I expect from my government. And I don't think I'm getting it right here. And I'm disappointed. One of the gentlemen talked about a phrase somebody used, capricious decisions, okay? I have another term. I'm sitting out here listening, and what I'm thinking of is tyranny, okay? It's oppressive use of power. And that's what I'm seeing. We didn't put you in this position because we wanted you to achieve things that you had for personal agendas, okay? You're there to take care of us, to make this a better place. I moved to Monroeville. I love Monroeville. Gateway's been great to my kids. I'd like to be a lifelong resident. I'm not going to say I'm going to go put a for sale sign on my house, but I'm worried, okay? I'm worried. And when we get these things in the paper about this kind of nonsense, it makes us look bad. Don't do that to us, okay? I think the earlier gentleman had a great idea. Let's get back to a vision. Let's get back to a plan of what a strong Monroeville is, and what do we need to make that happen. So in closing, my call to action to you is have the courage to one more time usurp that manager's authority, step down to that interim manager and say, you know what, we made a mistake. Bring Doug Cole back, because he's the man for the job. Thank you for your time. And I stole your pen.
It's your tax money at work.
That's my refund.
Ladies and gentlemen, everybody has signed in, has spoken. If there's anybody who would like to come on up, this is your time. Please state your name for the record, your address, please sign in. And I will keep this floor open as long as any one of you want to address this council.
My name is Peggy Coddington. I'm coming up on 52 years of being
Please
a
state your name, your address.
My address is 615 Snowball Road. I've raised 5 children here in Monroeville. They've all attended the Gateway School District. I am behind every single word that was spoken on behalf of Doug Cole. I think what was done was wrong, and I think it should be he should be reinstated. But I am here, while all these people are here, to point out 2 other things that haven't come up yet. They're going to be in your ordinances. And I'd like to know why. Why are we going to take some things away from a man that was elected by our votes for the tax collection office? Cut back, we're going to amend and reinstate the rules and regulations, or levy the taxes by the municipality for the years of whatever and ever, and you're going to go into the tax office, and then you're going to take away from his office the collection of all the other taxes, fees, assessments, and charges that are levied by the municipality of Monroeville. This tax office runs very well. It's an extremely efficient tax office. Why are we taking away work from this office, and we're going to give it to Lynette, and she's going to supervise the work? Pat Fulkerson was elected by us, by our votes, to supervise and to take care of the tax collection for this municipality. And all of a sudden, he's not good enough, and those girls that work so hard over in that office, and they greet you, and it's a friendly place, and if you have a problem, they work with you. All of a sudden, and Lynette's rolling her eyes, I don't know why, but you're taking that away from him, and you're giving it to the municipality manager, the interim municipality manager. I'd like to know why, and I think these people all here should know that that is what's coming up on your agenda Tuesday night. You got rid of Doug, now you're going to try and get rid of Pat. That's all I have to say.
Just to keep the record straight on that, ma'am, what it is that Mr. Fulkerson is an elected official for the real estate taxes. The 511 taxes, if you all recall, for those of you who've lived here for several years, is done by ordinance. And that ordinance allows, Pat basically has a contract with council to collect those taxes. Certainly, you as residents, if you feel differently, that should remain as you have done. That is certainly your right. But again, there's 2 separate issues. He was elected for real estate. The 511 and all the other taxes is by a contract with this council. So just keep that straight.
Okay, and this council feels that he has not done a job
I'm not
collecting all
going to
the
answer
others?
for any of that.
Okay.
That's certainly this.
But I would like it pointed out to everybody here that all of a sudden this is something else that's going to be being changed. since we have this new ruling body.
As a point of clarity, Mr. Mayor, he is an employee of the 511 taxes,
Yeah, well, my
And-
fault.
and-
I should have said, I agree. I'm not,
and he was clearly insubordinate to the existing manager in a public meeting where he stated unequivocally that he did not report to the manager. He then was told by the council, which he attested to be reporting to be quiet, and he still insisted on continuing to talk. As a point of matter,
Pat, just
it
hang on,
was-
Pat. Grab a seat, please. You have your opportunity.
as a point of matter, he is an employee under 511 taxes. He's not under contract.
Yeah, but I do want to say one thing, Bern, that we disagree on. You said that he was insubordinate to the current manager. That is not true.
And also, Burns, you read your
Now,
ordinance.
Pat, please state your name for the
My name's
record.
Pat Fulton. I am the tax collector of Monroeville, and I have a contract. And if you don't believe it, look at the ordinance. It is a contract.
So you're not an employee,
No, I'm not an employee.
okay?
I'm not an employee.
You're not an employee.
No, I'm not. I'm under contract.
You're not going to receive any retirement benefits from this municipality when
When
you're done.
when they gave out the compensation of the contract to me back in the year 2001, that was part of the agreement. But I'm independent. And if you don't believe it, I'll take you to court.
Yeah,
Mr. Dice? Mr. Dice? Patrick, I have a question. Patrick, I have a question. Patrick,
let's keep this.
I have a question.
Just put the question up.
okay, question is this. If you are not an employee, do you give up any rights to, as an employee, to privacy and to the protections you have as an employee? Please come up and state yes or no. I have a very specific reason to ask this, folks.
You know what?
No,
I'm
I'm not out of order. I have a
Hang on,
question.
hang on, folks. Let's all calm down.
Don't answer that. I will, my attorney will talk to you. Thank you.
Okay. If that's the case, Mr. Mayor, I have a simple question. Why are we defending, in an EEOC case, somebody that is not an employee? Why is the municipality and their insurance company covering and protecting somebody who is not an employee in an EEOC case? If he is a contractor, then I suggest that that contractor pays for it himself or have his insurance company pay for it.
Mr., why are you allowed to address
Well,
him and ask him
please,
a question? when
please.
We aren't allowed to ask.
Come on, we have to have order, folks. We have to have order. Please, ladies and gentlemen, I know this is a highly emotional issue as well, but please try to refrain. We have to keep some order. Please.
You have a question?
You have a question, Mr.?
I asked, why are we defending somebody that is not an employee?
Okay, well, I offered an opinion to Jeff Silk on January 9th on this issue, and I think it's best to read what I said, because I think it says it better than I can say it any other way. Jeff, as per your request last night, I reviewed ordinances affecting the 511 designated tax collector. I think we all agree that the elected property tax collector is a separate office and does not fall within the purview of the municipal manager. However, the appointed 511 tax collector is an employee of the municipality. He receives a W-2 check, receives fringe benefits like all other employees, is designated as a department head, and under Section 702 of the Home Rule Charter, he falls within the purview of the municipal manager, more specifically, Section 702A, B, E, and Q. I have reviewed the ordinances that have been adopted by council and find nothing in the ordinances that would conclude that the appointed tax collector accounts only to council. I hope this brings clarity to the issue. Very truly yours, me. That's what was said.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, would anybody else like to address council, please do so. Please state your name for the record, sign whoever first. Please state your name and address for the record after you sign in, if you would, please.
My name's Lori Pacusa. I live at 123 Pauline Drive. I'm almost a 40-year resident of Monroeville. For several years, I was under Mr. Ramsey's jurisdiction. Now I'm under Ms. Drumholder's. I will tell you what, I'm very disappointed in both of you because nobody asked my opinion of what I might have wanted. I supported the tax increase. I absolutely did, because what the benefits that we get in Monroeville, I would give extra money for. I've come to the tax office. I've asked for help in, I just actually asked him for something tonight. Apparently my local taxes went to O'Hara Township. He told me that he'd help me with that. I've called 911 for my daughters. They've come to my house. For what we get in Monroeville, I think it's worth a little extra money. I do not think it's worth extra money to get rid of 2 municipal managers in 2 years. You guys behave worse than 7 14-year-old kids. Learn to get along. This is crazy. Nobody asked what we all wanted. And this all started because of a HIPAA violation. You, out of anybody, should know how to file a HIPAA complaint. Go to the Health and Human Services. File a complaint with the security officer. That's how it should have been done. Just because the municipal manager might not have agreed with what you wanted, go another way. This is crazy. To pay someone $60-some thousand to not do their job. Now, all the money that we're going to be raising with the tax increase has to go somewhere else. How are we going to do it? Now, this money has to be raised another way. Now I don't support my tax increase. Find another way. Don't increase my taxes. Find another way. You guys get a stipend every month or whatever for your phone, computer. Mr. Ramsey, I've never seen you without your Bluetooth.
Yes, I've been wearing it for a while.
Okay.
And intimidated
But
people.
For years before you were a councilman,
Right, I wore
you
it all
always
the time.
had it.
Right.
Why don't the 4 of you find a way to pay the money for the manager? Because it was your choice for him to go. Because it wasn't my choice. You're my council person. You never asked your district what they might have wanted. So now I'm talking to you because him and I have already had it out on other things. You never asked me my opinion. I never saw you ask anybody on my street. And I'm home all day long because I work from home. Find a different way to come up with that money, because don't use my tax money.
Again, for those of you out in the hallway, we do have one young lady that is up next. And again, if anybody out in the hall would like to come in and address council, you certainly may as well.
Hi there. My name is Kelly O'Donnell. I'm a resident of 130 Kilbuck Drive. I've been a lifelong resident of Monroeville. I've known Officer Cole for a majority of that time. I hold him in the highest regard and believe he serves as a role model for the rest of the municipality. He epitomizes the ideal public servant, an individual who has selflessly dedicated his life to the betterment and protection of our community. It is stated in our home rule charter that the adoption of this charter can permit the locally elected officials to be responsive directly to the needs of these residents. As elected officials of this municipality, you are residents whose obligation it is to represent the interests and well-being of this community as a whole. Having worked in government relations at the federal level, I am in no way disillusioned that an individual abuse of power does not occur, which is why I'm here today. As the removal of Chief Cole demonstrates a disregard for objectivity and the promotion of personal gain over community. In a statement released by interim manager Lynette McKinney, Ms. McKinney states, "It is critical for the manager to have the full faith and trust of all municipal employees. With all due respect to you, Ms. McKinney, it is of the utmost importance that the citizens have the full faith and trust of all municipal employees, especially that of police chief. I can say without reservation that Officer Cole has the complete faith and trust of this community, as he is not only a strong leader, but an upstanding and contributing member of the municipality. The number of citizens in opposition of his removal serve as a true testament to to the level of faith and trust in him as chief of police. As the police department is responsible for the protection of our community, I would hope that the council remains mindful that each position and promotion must be based on meritocracy rather than personal preference. I am concerned that the lasting ramifications of this approval would have on our community, as it not only removes a qualified and dedicated professional, but it also establishes a legal precedent to which future matters will be answerable to. I hope that the council will thoughtfully consider all of its actions in this matter and give Officer Cole the time, respect, and reinstatement he has certainly earned. Thank you.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, this is your time to address council. If there's anybody else, come on up, sir, please. John, I certainly know who you are, but please state your name for the record and your address, and please sign in.
And do what?
Please sign in.
Oh, okay. I'm John Danzelli, live at Interlaken Drive, Monroeville. I'm not a native, but I've lived here 51 or 52 years. To give a little background, I served 28 years in the military, was public safety director for Allegheny County, was a public safety director here in Monroeville, and served 2 terms on council in Monroeville. I'm not here to sing the praises of Doug Cole, because I think everybody in this room is very familiar with him. They know what a great guy he is and what a great job he did. What I'm concerned about is he was fired without cause, and in the various jobs that I had, the administrative jobs, when someone was doing a job that wasn't correct, we either verbally reprimanded them or gave them a letter of reprimand and gave them a probationary period. I know of no letter of reprimand, no verbal reprimand, nothing that was ever done to tell Doug Cole he wasn't doing the job properly. So if he was doing the job properly, why get rid of him? And looking around here, I know of at least 3 of you that there are allegations out there, whether they're true or not, on why he was let go. But if you expect all of us to believe that one day out of a clear blue, floor of you came to the conclusion we don't need Doug Cole anymore, then you're dreaming, because none of us is ever going to believe that it happened just overnight. There has to be an underlying motive, and more than one probably. But I think, like everybody else said, the proper thing to do is go back, take a good long hard look at yourselves and say, hey, maybe we did make a bad decision, and let's think it over and let's reinstate him. Thank you.
John, you left your papers up there. You left your papers up there,
I just
John.
have one more thing.
Sure.
Talking about Pat Fulkerson. He's an elected tax collector. If he mouths off at somebody, don't say, I'm going to take my ball and go home. You reprimand him or something, but he is a tax collector. You don't take tax collecting away from a tax collector just because he answered somebody back. I mean, if you want to reprimand him, that's for reprimand him. But he's still our elected tax collector, and he should collect the taxes.
Again, we have another person from the inside, and hopefully I don't want to ignore anybody from the outside. So if there's anybody on the outside sitting in the hallway, we'll go to you next if there's somebody that wants to come in.
I have, well, I don't know, I'll sign my
Please
name.
state your name and address for the record.
I'm Fran Fulkerson. I live on 1312 Woodland Drive in Monroeville. I have a topic that I'd like to talk about, but I don't know if I'm allowed, so I'll ask this, because this is something that came up, and then there's a snowball that happened after that. My husband did a report on the taxes, and somebody changed it without asking him. They changed his numbers, okay? Am I allowed to talk about this?
So far, I don't have any
Okay.
comment.
So all of a sudden, it was given to everybody that this was a change. It didn't seem like it was ethical because no one who changed it never said why they changed it. To this day, we don't know. It was all, it's like with the due cause, you don't have to tell us anything. Now, right after he gets changed this, all of a sudden, part of his job gets taken away. What happens? He comes and says, who did this? Why did they do this? No one came and said why, but now part of his job is, now an ordinance is coming up to take part of his job away. Well, I just feel like no transparency at all, and I am so angry. I am so angry with everybody, not three of you. But anyway, I just don't understand why people can't give a reason, why people can just say, we don't have to answer you, and then all of a sudden, it's almost like he blew a whistle, now he's going to get fired. That's all I have to say.
Again, for those sitting out in the hallway, if anybody would like to address council, I apologize. We had a couple from the inside jump up pretty quick. So if there's anybody out there that would like to address council, please do so at this time. Do I have any takers? Okay, I'll address it in, doesn't look like it, so I'll address, yeah, please come on up. Again, Sam.
Sign in again?
You have to, no, you don't have to sign again, but please state your
Sam
name.
Garfolo. I'd like to know, when is the new search going to begin for our manager?
I would assume right away.
Could it be possible to have some citizens involved with this too? That way, we can't do the hiring, but to sit in and see what's going on during the process. And two things I think you need to do. You're not going to bring a competent manager in here unless you give them a vote of 5, that they can only be removed by 5 votes. You need to put that in the next manager's contract, that you will have 5 votes to be fired. Same thing is when you reinstate Doug Tuesday night. You need to give him the confidence. You need to give him the confidence to do the job of saying, it's going to be, and you can amend his contract, because he does have one, it's going to be a vote of 5. I'm telling you, like I said, when we had all these management issues out here before, we always had the person in charge, the chief of police was a steady person. We didn't have people going in and out. You need to think about that. A vote of 5, that takes all the politics out of this. There's no personal reasons, no politics. It's a vote of 5, and that's the only way you're going to find a good manager. And I think when you reinstate Doug, you need to do the same thing. Offer him that protection that he can leave whenever he wants, but he's got a vote of 5. It's confidence from you as our elected officials. Thank you.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I'll open the floor up for anybody that would like to address council at this time. And we do have a taker. Sir, if you'll please state your name and address for the record, and please sign
My
in.
name's David Tucker. I live at 4662 Old William Penn Highway, Mrs. Drumheller's district there. Main thing is I've come into the borough. I moved in here 4 years ago total. And at that time, I was pleased with everything that was going on, and that was a resident of Plum up until 4 years ago. My grandmother ended up passing away. I moved into her house. And then I come into Monroeville here, find that my taxes are going up, people are getting pensions that shouldn't have been getting pensions and so forth. I just don't want to see my tax dollars going to waste over the stuff that, like a $20 million park that we have, 5 other parks in Monroeville here?
Actually, 19 other parks, sir.
Well, did we really need an extra park on that benefit with my tax dollars that were supposed to go towards the emergency services initially? I mean, granted, I'll admit, I'm a firefighter here in Monroeville, but a lot of times with the rigs and stuff like that, yeah, we don't see the money directly because the borough does pay for part of our rigs, but even whenever it comes down to the public safety side of seeing things, it's a task for any of the firemen to ask for any help along in here with the tax dollars and that the residents are paying for, It just seems to me if you're going through all the managers and getting rid of the police chief that's been here for how long and been doing a good job, the makes me not want to be a Monroeville fireman anymore and not protect the citizens of Monroeville because you guys are going against every policy, every person out there to say, we can just walk in and get rid of somebody next day. What's next? All the fire departments are going to be out the door too? You know? That's my opinion of it, but... So,
Anything else for us, sir?
nope, I'm good. I just got to finish writing this down. So.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, the floor is open for anybody that would like to address council. Again, as I said many times, this is your opportunity to address. Please, no, you have to come on up to the
I
microphone.
just have a question. Are we going to discuss the ordinances as we go through?
Yes, that's coming up during our work session. Yeah, that will happen. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, before I close the Citizens Night proportion, one more time, would anybody else like to address council? And if you didn't hear the question, they was asked if we were going to review not just the ordinances, but all of the agenda. Hopefully, some of you, there are agendas out there. That is why the purpose of this meeting is to review that so they can vote on it as they see fit on Tuesday. So since there's no other takers, I will close the Citizens Night proportion of this meeting. If any of you would like to exit, I will give you that opportunity at this time. I would hope most of you will stay and listen to the rest of the meeting. But I'll give you an opportunity to go. No, he's not going to address it.
He is signing to it.
I thought he meant we were going to discuss it. Yeah, no, I think he's going to, I thought he was going to ask it. Well, I'll get that straight. I'll get that straight.
It's closed, you can't talk.
Yeah, no, I didn't understand it that way, but
He
I'll
wanted to
address
ask,
it
he needed to
again.
do it then,
I'll address it again.
but he can't do it now.
No, I agree. I'll address it.
See you, Eddie.
Share.
I'm after cop.
Oh, you leave after, oh, okay. I forgot about that.
What do you want? They, we have to, I'm mistaken. I haven't been since.
We had to have the meetings. What's represented?
Want me to come back, I will.
It's on the other side.
Mayor.
Break my feet.
It's going to break your teeth. Get your teeth.
He does all the testing. I don't think it's in the book. It's got to stop. It's just you need to have a microphone. They crown down a little. That's
These relatives, I'm making this one.
Using the other board.
Oh, really?
Time since we've spent so much time. Registration fee is just something that
They got too many people going out that way or what?
I have two.
Mayor?
Hang on a minute, Joe.
Yeah, I know. Just that we'll need those doors shut.
Joe, I am sorry, I did not hear what you said. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get back in with the meeting. We're going to get back to the meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Serafini had a question in regards, and I maybe misunderstood, thought that he could ask questions during the ordinance session of our work session. Just to answer your question, Mr. Serafini, at this not the appropriate time. You'll have opportunities to come in Tuesday to ask any questions that you'll have at that time. That's why
At the bottom here, Mary, it says public comment.
yeah, that's for the regular council
I'd like to
meeting.
make a comment after I hear what the ordinance is.
Yeah, but if you read the top, it says the regular council meeting. I would never try to stifle you or any resident. That this is our work session now, okay? And again, I unless council.
If I comment, if you have those wrote down, I'll be glad to ask them for you.
Okay, I'm gonna,
Well, let me help here. Let me just try to help. Procedurally, the public portion of this meeting is closed.
okay?
Tuesday night, there'll be another public portion where you'll be able to speak to all of those ordinances ahead of time. And in fact, it's called public to be heard on agenda items. So that's the appropriate time to speak to those ordinances if you have questions.
Okay, I have some questions regarding this, if you're gonna go over it. Because Pat Fulkerson has been a friend of mine for 40 years, and I definitely want to speak on his behalf,
Okay, Tuesday night's the appropriate time.
okay? Because I want to listen to exactly what you're telling me.
You might want to make yourself notes then, since it is Tuesday.
Oh, I will.
Very good, sir. Okay, now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to our work session portion of our meeting, and all members of council are present. And just for the public's, for your information, we will have a public hearing on our liquor license transfer. That'll be on Tuesday. Again, another opportunity for you to address council on that issue. Now, moving over to our minutes for Citizens Night meeting of December 6, 2012, the council meeting of December 11th, 2012, the Citizens Night meeting of January 3rd, 2013, and the budget public hearing of January 3rd, 2013. Now, council, there were 3 other meetings, but you do not have the notes. So for those that they do, are there any comments, corrections, or additions? Seeing none, we'll move over to our reports of our tax collections. And again, council, any reports on them, any additions or corrections? Seeing none, we'll move over to our payroll report. Any questions, comments, additions, or corrections to our payroll report? We'll now move over our list of bills. And Byrne, we'll start off with you, sir.
No questions at this time, sir.
Very good. Nick?
No questions this evening.
Lois?
Yes, Mayor. Just in the interest of time, I normally try to make a list of these. I've flagged them, and if it takes some time to get the answer on Tuesday, I just want to mention what they were for the sake of clarity. On the list of bills, page 1, there was a Allegheny County Treasurer $20, and I understand it was for the pump registration fee. I just did not know, I didn't understand the nature of that, so I can have the explanation later on that. And on page 9, the item underneath Bruce Dyson Associates for a filing fee, I believe that would be the filing fee for the liens
Yes.
that were placed. Okay, I understand that, so I won't need to ask that. And on page 43, I believe I got an answer to this, that the Union Review's advertisement for professional engineer proposal, that was the engineering bids, $216.84. Okay, and that's all I have.
Mr. Johns?
Excuse me, I have nothing, sir.
Mrs. Allison?
Yes, on page 6, under choice applications, $699 for fleet management software.
That's the new tracking system for the fleet management, maintenance, for the maintenance of the vehicles over at Public Works.
Is that done yearly, or is that one time?
Yes, that's a one-time fee for the software.
Page 14, Fletcher's, $424.96 for a backpack blower.
That's also for Public Works. That's the blower backpack that our Public Works gentlemen use to blow the snow off the sidewalks or leaf in the fall, or grass clippings when they cut.
Is that a replacement, or?
It is a replacement, but the old one's being repaired and is moving to the community park. This is a new one for the municipal building and all the islands and Old Stone Church.
And the next one, I guess, page 28, there's a lot of towing costs, and I don't understand how you can have $1,200 worth of towing costs. What that's for and why?
Yeah.
For one vehicle.
Our garbage truck number 50, it's a 2008 garbage truck, was actually towed to Cranberry for repair. The garage quoted us $21,000 to fix the transmission, so we in turn had it towed back to the garage, and our mechanics fixed it in-house for almost a quarter of the price, so that's what that was for. But that's the towing charge back and forth of that garbage truck.
$1,200 is the normal towing charge for something like that?
Yes, in accordance to our Public Works
All right,
director.
that's all I have, thank you.
Steve?
I have nothing.
Clarence?
I'm good.
And we'll move over our list of, budget transfers. We'll go to you, Clarence. Steve? Budget transfers. Diane?
I don't have any.
Jim?
Nothing.
Lois?
Nothing, Mayor.
Nick?
No questions.
No questions.
Very good. And we'll go over to resolutions. Mrs. McKinney, if you would.
This is a resolution approving the transfer and importation of liquor license R2128 into the municipality of Monroeville pursuant to Pennsylvania Act 141 of 2001 concerning Winghart's Brazava, Inc. This will be situated at the Monroe Mall in Suite 300, which is probably known to everyone as the old Houlihan's or Dingbats location. Winghart's is a hamburger place that is apparently in the south side area, and they're looking to put a location in Monroeville and in the Westmoreland Mall.
Questions or comments on this resolution before you, council?
I'm trying to recall, because I know that there are a certain number of them that would be held in our own municipality.
Correct, and they'll be prepared to talk about that on Tuesday when they come to present.
Any other comments? Mrs. McKinney?
Second resolution is a resolution amending the fund balance policy. As you remember, we changed that down to 7.5. And this is the resolution that will actually correct that for the budget of 2013.
Questions or comments on this item before you, council? Mrs. McKinney?
A resolution adopting the Monroeville Ambulatory Surgery Center sewage planning module. This is typical for the site. If you have any questions, you can ask Mr. Hugus.
Questions or comments, council, for Mr. Hugus? I'm sure there'll be an explanation in full if there's any other. Do you have anything you want to add to that, Paul?
No, this is just a follow-up. The former Sims building, which was approved by site plan last month, the information from Alcoasand was not available at the time of the council meeting, so it has to be adopted by resolution in a formal manner for this month.
Thank you for that, Paul. I just didn't want the public not to know what
Understood.
we're talking about. Mr. Rice, of the ordinance.
Yes, the first ordinance is an ordinance to provide for an amendment of the 2011-2013 capital improvement budget.
Questions or comments on this ordinance? Maybe do a very quick, if you would, Mrs. McKinney, what that is.
This is $120,000 that we purchased a high loader from. Council bought it with other funds, so we're now transferring that money for a paint machine and a packer, garbage packer for the Public Works Department.
Again, questions or comments, council? Mr. Dice.
Yes, secondly is an ordinance fixing the compensation of the tax collector for the collection of real estate property taxes levied by the municipality for 2014, 15, 16, and 17.
Questions or comments, council?
I have one question. Why is it blank?
This is an ordinance that we pass before the election of the tax collector each year. If you flip over to the next page, I provided you a detailed compensation of how those numbers were derivative through the past 10 years. So this is actually something that's set by council. So I wanted council to have an opportunity to look to see how they'd like to set that again for the next 4 years.
Would that be appropriate to talk about that tonight, Mr. Dice?
You can talk, sure. You mean about the amounts?
Yes.
Sure.
Council, I would certainly like to hear, because I agree with Councilman Duncan.
Would the amounts remain the same, or?
That's my question.
There are no amounts for 2014, 15, 16, and 17. It stops at 2013.
Correct.
In 2002, it was 18,500. In 2013, it is 29,250.
Well, for the record, I had a conversation with our tax collector, Mr. Fulkerson. He is not requesting any increase in his salary that you have offered. He knows of the financial situation we are in and is quite happy where his current salary is. So again,
So he wants it to remain at the 29,250 for the
Yes.
next 4 years?
he did not, he had no issue with that.
So then we should put 29,250 in.
I will add
Would that
that.
be appropriate to do?
Is that the consensus of
procedurally?
council?
Well,
I
yeah.
mean, I
yeah,
just don't
yeah,
understand how you
consensus.
can consider an ordinance with no figures.
Well, I think they're discussing that now, Steve, as we speak.
We have to put them in.
I'm asking council for direction of how you would like to move.
You've talked to the tax collector?
This is up to council to make that decision.
No, I'm asking the mayor if he's.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
He commented that he talked to the tax collector.
Yes, I did, and he's quite satisfied with his current salary.
I would think he'd put those numbers in there.
And I would suggest the numbers be.
We can't actually do it tonight, but that is
I
my
understand.
consent. You're directing the manager then.
We'll do that.
Any other questions or comments, council, on
I'm
this
just
item?
reading that. In 2010, am I reading that correctly? There was a 15% increase?
That is correct,
Okay,
yes.
That's not a typo because none of them are like that.
Any other comments or questions on this item before you, council? Mr. Dice, if you would.
Yes, that's number 2. Number 3, an ordinance amending the code of the municipality of Monroeville, ordinances number 2361, 2416, 2520, 2533, by amending and restating the rules and regulations of the Civil Service Commission. These are somewhat of housekeeping changes to the rules and regulations due to the new legislation. It requires alternates to be put in now, and it's, again, picking up some of the, what were perceived as deficiencies under the old set of ordinances.
Can I get an explanation on this? I mean, it's 34 pages. Are we changing them all?
Where the corrections are, Councilman Duncan, is where the changes would be made off to the right-hand column. And as Mr. Dice stated, the major changes.
I'm not seeing where the changes.
Right here, do you have any of those?
Mine
This
are
would be
bl-
one of it. Do you
Why
have
are
any?
mine blank? Oh,
Like that.
there are a few.
And these changes have all come from the Civil Service Commission?
That is
This is
correct.
from their work sessions that they have?
Correct.
When was their last meeting? know.
December 17th.
Mine are
or
blank.
January 17th.
Yeah, there's
Their next meeting
Some of
is
them are-
February
some are.
19th.
there's some
Is
have
this
no
their
change.
final draft from January 17th
That is
meeting?
correct. Mhm. From their attorney, Mr. Sean Warren.
That one page that has a change.
I would suggest, council, if you don't have a clean copy with the proposed changes, that you request them
Everybody
from the
has a
interim
copy,
manager.
Mayor. and-
Yeah, we have.
I have nothing on mine. I have
See, that's what I'm
formatted,
saying. See, some
Go to
have,
bullet
page-
numbering.
You can go to the pages, Steve. Go to page 26. There's the changes in the right-hand column.
Page 5 has it too.
Yeah.
Six of us.
Some pages do have changes, some pages don't.
that's correct.
Okay.
That's the very last page.
You okay?
I'm okay.
I would just recommend, council, between now and Tuesday, please review them thoroughly. I agree, there are 34 pages. That is quite a bit to digest, but it's certainly upon you to do that.
Okay.
Mr. Dice.
Yes, next ordinance is an ordinance fixing the real estate millage for land, building, and structures. for 2013 to allow for a 5% windfall provision in the second-class county code.
If you'll just please explain that, Mr.
Okay,
Dice.
because this is a reassessment year, which is a very unusual year, this taxing body cannot increase taxes greater than 5% of the revenues that they collected last year. If you look at the revenues collected, it appears that we're up, I think, 20%, 25%. So we have to roll back our tax millage to be compliant with the anti-windfall provision. That's what this ordinance does. This is going on across both school boards and municipalities throughout Allegheny County.
Questions or comments, council? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Mayor, we were supposed to have had follow-up by the end of February as to whether or not our own request through the courts for going above that 5%?
Yes, we have a date, I think it's February 24th. I'm not sure, I'll
20th.
confirm that.
It's the 20th.
Okay. We have a date set, and we'll get a ruling from the court at that time.
Any other questions or comments, council? Mr. Dice, if you would.
Yes, number 5 is an ordinance repealing ordinance number 2204 and restoring the municipal manager as the tax collector for all Act 511 taxes, that's not real estate, and other taxes, fees, assessments, and charges that are levied by the municipality.
Questions or comments?
Yes,
on
I
this
have a
item?
question.
Okay.
Why, this was sponsored by Mrs.
I
Drum-
sponsored that,
Mrs.
yes.
Drumheller?
I was going to do an explanation. Maybe, would you like me to explain, and then you might have comments?
Okay.
Okay, all right, might be a little cleaner that way. In our, last month, in our budget meetings, Mr. Erb was introducing an amendment that considered several things, which were then broken down because we really didn't want to take it as a whole. We wanted to break it apart and see, well, are we willing to consider doing something with local service taxes or delinquent earned income taxes, as was suggested, in order to save money. And so in those arguments, we argued about them last month. Council considered outsourcing the local service tax, and that was supposed to have saved a 2% cost, and that would have reduced the cost of running the department to collect that by $24,378. These are the figures we were given. And also, council in that considered outsourcing the delinquent earned income tax, and that would be a 5.8%, which would reduce the cost another $17,400. So these two actions would have resulted in saving $41,778. So one possible reason that we didn't agree about this is because the way that I think that if you're looking at the tax department, and my argument was we have 2 full-time supervisors and then 2 clerks. My position was not over losing any of the clerical positions with the tax office. And I think that there was a concern that if you took any of that work away from them, then ultimately, and Mr. Fulkerson actually presented this argument that, that would probably affect one of the clerks. And that was not my position. My position is not, over losing that. But as I see it, the clerical work, especially in the tax office, they can be reassigned. They cross over and do different things. They become flexible. They're very efficient. So the tax work that we were debating, and it failed, and we did not agree about that. We didn't agree to cut that. That's all that's under this Local Enabling Tax Act of 1965, or the 511 taxes. That was all underneath that. So I looked at the way that occurred. I did look to see from a long time ago how those taxes were handled. And my proposal here is to return 511 taxes as they were originally intended under the Home Rule Charter. So this means instead of proportioning another full-time position, because actually we created in 2001, in December, when then retiring tax collector Geneva McKee had retired. She was the elected collector for real estate taxes. And as I found out, she also took on some other things like business privilege taxes, but there was never another position created to simply handle the 511 taxes. So, I looked at it. That was indeed under an ordinance that I am asking us to consider seriously to repeal, because by repealing the ordinance that created the extra full-time position, this is in the form of these two ordinances, 2204 and 2205, which does have a contract that's attached to it, and I have it in front of me here. I'll share that. After repealing that, though, the position, the tax collector who's elected, his position or her position, whoever's in that position, is retained, and there's even a 4 months to retire that position and to not make it a full-time position collecting 511 tax. There's a 4-month severance to be paid to the person who still functions as our elected tax collector of real estate. We effectively reduce the cost of running that department without any clerical layoffs. I didn't want any clerical layoffs, and there are no clerical layoffs associated with that. This is what this council was, when I talked about reducing the budget, and we were taking a look at the items that, how can we run that tax office? Can we get back to the way that the Home Rule Charter outlined it should be, instead of how it changed at the end of 2001? This council has to begin the task of bringing our budget back under control. And all of the contracts that, from the time that we started to talk about the budgets, to examine how they work, how could it make the tax office work more efficiently. Here's the first example here. We've been asked by the majority of our constituents just to work on this, to see how we can bring this budget under control. This is my first attempt to do that. Yes, it does retire that position that was created. It was created as a full-time position with benefits, that when there's a retirement, even in the contract, it says if you're retiring that position, you need to give this severance, you need to have all the things that are part and parcel to, the retirement for that person. So there's full retirement there. The direction of how those 511 taxes are handled, as they were originally written in the Home Rule Charter, they were handled that way. They returned to that. And however they are going to be managed, which Mr. Urbis talked about this, well, why don't you just take some of what we do and we contract that out and have that done because this is what was happening anyway. Well, this kind of compartmentalizes it so that it can be managed that way, so that you take the full-time position that was created to handle that. These are two simultaneous positions, sir, and you retire them.
I'm a little confused with it, but,
So tell me what your question is there.
so obviously, we feel that our manager doesn't have enough on his or her plate, that we can tax the manager to collect taxes. It's mind-boggling to me.
Change the manager's job description to do this?
Well, the original job description,
Well,
actually, the job description on the Home Rule Chart, the tax job description spells it out as far as who shall do that.
Shouldn't our
unless there
manager
is
be
a
managing
reason- Pardon?
and not collecting taxes? That's why we have an office over there, a tax collector, and a
Yes.
well-staffed system.
Yes.
That
And
the
essentially what
residents
it-
can talk to the people and deal with their issues.
Right, and
Are we gonna
for
have them
the
going up?
majority of time, Steve, that happens, but it happens less likely with local service tax and delinquent income tax. And
I
more
don't know that.
likely with our property taxes. So it is true, that's a valuable service. That whole entire tax department is a valuable service. However, if we're going to restructure something and try to bring it so that it's manageable.
I understand what you're saying.
This is my first
I just don't
attempt.
understand how we could put that on the manager's plate. I mean,
It always has been, up until December of 2001.
well, that was 12 years ago.
Yes, I realize that was 12 years ago. How was it done prior to that? In order to.
I haven't a clue.
Well, that's where I did my homework. That's why I asked, I looked at the partitioned work that came out of that office, and I asked the person who did it before they retired. And, half, I guess it would be half of an FTE. There would be two full-time, and I suppose with volume, because we do tend to get people who come in as interns and as part-time, and we do temporary work. When the volume fluctuates, you bring those people in when you need them. It's just in an effort to try to make a more responsible running and make the budget come down, as we are being asked to do in all of our contracted services. And that is one of them. And that is the message that we all got during budget time. We can't forget this was less than a month ago, that we were asked to look, find the way that you can reduce the overhead costs of the service. Not lessen the service, but put it back in the efficient way that it should be and that it has consistently been in the national standard. And that's pretty much where I'm going with that. So I want to be very transparent with that. That's the way that it had functioned. That's the way the Home Rule Charter has it described. And so this is what the possibility is out there. I'd love to share some thoughts
Possibly
here
12
about
years ago, they changed it for a reason.
that. Well, they
maybe
changed it to create a
poss-
position, a full-time position.
I don't know that, but
But
possibly.
it is, it's true, I'm telling you the answer.
Possibly it was a burden on the manager.
There's no evidence that tells me there was a burden on the manager. There's evidence that tells me that during the
So they just
time,
arbitrated, they just decided to make another position.
there was an incoming tax collector that was elected. There was an outgoing tax collector that was elected. So really, nothing changed other than the addition of that position.
Any other questions or comments?
I think it'd be proper for us to all have a copy of the contract that the tax collector has.
Sure, it's actually in 2205, but
That's
if you'd
part of
like
it.
me to make a copy that I have, I'll be happy to do that.
That'd be great. Or if I guess it would be Lynette, if you could maybe email copies.
I can scan them to you tomorrow morning.
Wasn't that attached to the email that
Yeah, it was-
Bruce originally sent
Yep.
us that
Yeah, we had it. That's okay.
2205,
indicated that he was,
I didn't
that
see it.
he was an employee?
Not in the ordinance packet that we just received.
No, in the email that Bruce sent, I think January 9th.
Again, any other comments on this item before you, Council?
Okay,
I'll resend it.
If there's no other comments, I do have a
No, but
comment.
that's my explanation, so, thank you.
Thank you. I do have a comment, and I did talk to Mr. Bond, who did put this ordinance together back in 2001. Number one, he said it's very time-consuming. It is a burden on the manager because of all the duties that are out there. That's his number one reason. It's nothing I made up. For those of you who know how to contact Mr. Bond, if he's willing to talk to you, I'm sure he'll share the same. Second thing why I have an issue with this moving out is who has the expertise now to do the 511 taxes other than our tax collector and his staff. And our tax collector is the expert in that area. So it was moved for a reason, to answer you, Mr. Duncan.
Seemed like it.
And I just could not let that not be said, because I did personally call Mr. Bond on this issue in regard to that, and that's why it was moved the way it was moved, and for no other reason. Mr. Dice.
okay, the last ordinance is an ordinance entering into an agreement with the member municipalities of the Turtle Creek Valley COG for the establishment of a joint Uniform Construction Code Board of Appeals as required by the Uniform Construction Code, and hereby dissolving the municipality of Monroeville's Uniform Construction Code Board of Appeals.
You want to explain that in English here,
Okay.
Mr. Dice?
Years ago, we came under the auspices of the Uniform Construction Code. The legislator, in their wisdom, passed a statute that required each municipality to come up with a board made up of very specialized individuals, engineers, contractors, I think real estate, various expertise individuals to make up that board for each community. Well, there are a lot of communities that do not have people that are willing to volunteer that have that kind of expertise. So someone got the bright idea to, why don't we go to the COG and form one authority, one board, and have the COG draw from those various communities and get experts in accordance with the law. And that's what happened. We put together a unified board through the Turtle Creek COG. Well, someone sued, and some lawyer went before the court and said, this is not in accordance with the act. And, of course, some judge decided that that lawyer was correct, and therefore struck down the Uniform Construction Board made up through a conglomerate of communities through the COG. Well, the legislature decided to try to get it right, and they passed another statute that says you can do that. So now it's permissible for you to join a COG uniform construction board made up of individuals that are properly registered, properly with the proper expertise to act on your behalf on that board. And so each community now will have not necessarily a representative, but will appeal their cases to the Uniform Construction Board. Let me just give you one little aside. I've been here for more than a decade, and there's never been an appeal to the Uniform Construction Board. That's not to say we couldn't have a flurry of them. So it's not a real active board, but what this ordinance does is permit us to become part of the COG, Uniform Construction Board, with the proper credentialed people.
Questions or comments, council? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Dice.
That's all I have.
We'll move over to our reports of officials, and Mr. Dice, any words of wisdom?
None tonight.
Mrs. McKinney, you have an item there, if you would, please.
Right, just asking council's permission to support the Gateway Lacrosse team in a $50 donation to compete in the WPIAL this year.
Thank you. Moving to our reports of officials, Clarence, we'll start off with you first this evening.
I don't have anything in it.
Thank you.
I have a few
Steve.
things. First, I would like to apologize to my wife and family, especially my daughter Heather, who's getting married next week. You know, it's been a chaotic week, and I haven't really been there to support her much, but that'll change, hon. Secondly, as I was stating, I won't be here at next Tuesday's meeting. Her wedding was planned over a year ago. I've only been on council a year, so it's, you know, it has nothing to do with, it was planned a year ago. So I will be out of state. I'm going to try my best, if I'm not in the air on Tuesday, to call in so I can voice my votes. I was told by the solicitor that's the only way I can do it. So hopefully I can get that arranged. And a lot of questions were asked tonight, and I don't know why Doug Cole was removed. As a six-ward councilman, I have no idea why he was removed. I've served on Monroeville Council for a little over a year now. During that time, I've been in the minority. In my 32 years of service with Monroeville, I've worked with quite a number of different councils, but I've never experienced one as disruptive, wasteful, and demoralizing to the taxpayers, residents, and employees as this current majority of council. In this short year, I've seen two very qualified managers come and go at great expense to the taxpayers. Why? Because they have a conscience and could not carry out the dirty deeds asked of them by the majority of council. Fire the police chief with 32 years of service without cause? I don't understand it. Fire the IT director and bring in a company of their choice? Undermine the tax collector and his duties? I've heard threatening of employees, just to name a few. All I can say to the residents of Monroeville is that I'm sorry. I can only hope the upcoming elections will bring change. Thank you, and thank you all for coming.
Mrs. Allison.
Yeah, I would like to go over some of the programs coming to the Monroeville Convention Center. First, actually starting today, is the Pittsburgh Indoor-Outdoor Home Show, and it'll be here to Sunday, February 13th through 17th. Allegheny Sport, Travel, and Outdoor Show. February 23rd and 24th, the Pittsburgh Fire Rescue and EMS Expo, and on March 8th through 10th, Pittsburgh Golf Show. And I would like to take some time to go over a few things that we've talked about tonight. There's been a lot of printed misinformation and misstatements spoken that I've not chosen to address in an attempt originally to keep the negative attention out of Monroeville. But due to the mayor's love of the camera and his arrogance as well as ignorance, we are at the center of attention, all for political reasons, sadly based on false information. I was asked by a prominent figure in Monroeville politics to clear up certain concerns, as I didn't want to start to get into a big battle amongst council, but I was asked to do this. It's been said to me by two other council people that Mr. Silka's recollections of the conversations were not accurate. But I chose not to get into a big battle of he said, she said, or what he really said, since I was the apparent target of the mayor's attacks. What is accurate, there were numerous concerns regarding Doug Cole's responsibilities that were brought out, some of which all of this council would know about. There were numerous things sent to us by the previous manager, every single person on this council got. Then additional information was brought forth. Some information was investigated, some was left untouched. We asked if another legal entity should handle certain issues, but once again, in an attempt to keep Monroeville out of the negative spotlight, our manager was charged to do this task. After months of inactivity on numerous issues, including privacy concern and the information surrounding the handling of it, personnel discipline, and also the significant decline of police and supervisors, frustrations continued, and it was not just me. Finally, it was decided that we needed to make sure that Mr. Silka was aware that he needed to do something, and to do nothing was not acceptable. Mr. Erb told me that he spoke to Jeff, and we decided to let Jeff know that we backed his direction. The bottom line is Jeff needed to do his job, and that is what he was asked to do, nothing more but nothing less. There was absolutely no directive to fire Doug Cole by me, or said in front of me, or insinuated, or implied. Jeff shared with us his issues that he became aware of and had documentation concerning Doug and his responsibilities as department head. Jeff was asked why he had not investigated these, and he gave no answer. We made it clear that it was his responsibility to act upon the issues as manager, and since we were now aware, we were just responsible if nothing was done. We stated we had faith in his ability to address all of the issues effectively in an effective manner, in whichever manner chosen by him. I would absolutely love to discuss all of these in detail, but legally, absolutely none of us are permitted, either because they are personnel issues or under current investigation. None of this was taken lightly, or did we act hastily. We have been accused of being political, and if that were true, doesn't anyone think the timing of this is really bad for us to be the ones being political? We have been asked, why didn't you go through the public hearing? That was seriously considered, but once again, the issues related to the public hearing involved other employees and are considered personnel, and that we would not be able to make public at a public hearing. And the worst part of this for Monroeville is the mayor. In his official capacity as the mayor representing Monroeville, he chose to publicly state on TV false speculation while beating the media for his own political agenda. That's absolutely shameful. I've heard so many rumors about my husband for over 2.5 years. First, it was assistant chief when we were appointed assistant chief. Then it was a canine officer when I asked about the status of one of ours. Then I asked about the rumor that a new officer would be placed into a detective position as an officer to avert the process, hence the beginning of a purposely calculated scheme to dishonor me and my family. My husband has voiced his desire to do many things related to bettering himself and doing more for his community. He took college courses to become a more skilled and knowledgeable officer. I'm very proud of what he's done, and he has many career ambitions, but most lately, none of them including detective. Within the last year, my husband was approved for outside employment by Doug, as required for his current goals. Doug should know this, and it was not anything to do with being a detective. But that doesn't make for a good story. Only the people who have a what's in it for me attitude can consistently make false accusations because they cannot understand people who just do things for the right reasons and nothing more. What is extremely concerning, and should be to everybody, is that the mayor of 5 years can make such false accusations, so false that they're actually impossible to happen the way he accuses. The law prevents it. No matter what anyone says, the law prevents it. The law that has been updated 3 times by council under Greg's watch. How does he not know this? The civil service law that we were ordered to abide by and have had in effect since 2006 prevents personal, political promotions or appointments in the police department. That's the only division of this municipality where you have such a law in effect that prevents them. The animosity towards me from the mayor is clear, and to do such a deceitful thing, and those who assist him are just as spiteful. There are some that actually believe things because the mayor says so, or they see it on TV. We have a mayor who plays by his rules and his rules only. He has said so on camera. A mayor that stated Robert's rules are not worth the paper they are written on and has quoted many times that the borough code trumps the charter. The mayor has attacked me and my husband personally from the first day I started on council and has not stopped. From his past behaviors, women seem to be the specific target of his abuse. In the school system, he would be considered a bully. Anyone who knows me or my husband knows we would never use any position for personal gain. And if you thought about it because it's been purposely portrayed to make sense, you should kindly check out the facts before you indulge in such a rumor. The mayor has insulted decent people and respectable families in his effort to keep his good friend as chief to continue his political favors. Cronyism is alive and well, but it's not with me. Take a gander at the weekly morning breakfast at King's, the Palace Inn of the Present, and visit those who come for the Breakfast Club to discuss politics. You'll find the mayor there with a lot who were here tonight. Then there is the rumor about the mayor's relative, who I won't name, recently got into trouble with the law, and he asked Doug to help out. The mayor wants to keep his good friend as chief as pulling out all the stops. Once the truth,
you need to say that name. I have no idea what you're talking about.
well, I'll let you. I wouldn't do that to your relative, though. I will not do that.
I don't
will
have
tell
a
you who
damn
it is.
clue what you, yeah,
I'll
tell
tell
me.
you who it is.
Please run the meeting, Mayor.
Once the truth is allowed to be told, will all the stone throwers
You're
be
right.
back to apologize?
We'll deal with that legally,
Will the
but go
mayor?
ahead.
That's right. I heard it. I heard it from two people, and I didn't call out. I would never call out a name like that to disrespect anybody.
Mr. Johns.
Yeah, I have a couple things. Although I'm one of the newest members of council, in my past full year of service with Monroeville, I've become truly concerned about the current state of affairs plaguing our local chain of command. Instead of working together to move Monroeville in a positive direction, internal politics have taken over to advance hidden agendas. Now, within one short year, certain members of council have forced out not one but two very qualified, intelligent borough managers. Why? Well, I can't be completely sure. I do feel it's to advance their own agendas, and also to cover up other instances in Monroeville concerning the safety of some of our employees. On the demotion of Chief Cole, it's truly disheartening. A long-time dedicated leader was let go without cause by our interim manager, at the direction, I would assume, of the majority of council. This same majority that ousted the manager. Would I support the demotion of someone who was clearly in violation of policies or not performing their duties as were required by them? Absolutely. This was not the case of Chief Cole. This was a witch hunt driven by what I feel are personal agendas. While our interim manager, Lynette McKinney, may be familiar with the workings of several departments from her time in the municipal as a secretary, I find it hard to understand how in just 48 hours she was able to conduct an evaluation of the department and its practices and determine that the chief was the problem. Rather than just dismissing the chief, I would have supported a full-blown investigation, which I think the department and our Monroeville residents still deserve. But instead of just investigating Doug, the entire department should be looked at, including our current acting chief, because I find it hard to believe he's the right person for the job when complaints, and there have been several of them, have been made against him as well, and that's all I have to report.
Mrs. Drumheller.
Yes, Mayor. I usually go into senior news. The seniors did have their bingo this past Saturday, so there's nothing to announce there, and I think I'll just save that committee things and other things for Tuesday, because I wanted to write my thoughts down as well. You know, at the Wednesday's executive session covering personnel issues, only 4 of the elected council members attended. Where were the other 3? You know, the least that the 3 people could have done is to show up to find out why I was horrified. Because we were all present, and I'm pretty sure we wouldn't be at quite the same level of hostility if we were. By the way, I'm going to say some things. I've known some moments of hostility on council. I know what it feels like to be at the bottom of a dung heap, and much the same way some people are trying to do with Mrs. Allison. My way of describing what happens to councilwomen up here, and I will say councilwomen, is what I call verbal rape. Picture this. There you are, being pummeled over and over in public, casting shame upon you while you're getting it. All the while, disinformation, vile, targeted behavior, and outright lies. In my case, I've been on council beginning with the year 2009. In my case, 4 grown men, one who had been sitting to the left of me, not you, Dr. Resock.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you. And 3 to the right, taking their turns, piling on. And then after all of that, I was told how awful I was after that. And I must tell you, that sets, especially within the first 6 or 8 months, that sure sets you for what you either are going to survive, develop very thick skin over, or, shrivel away. But that last Wednesday was an opportunity for all of us to gain knowledge that I am sure some up here did not want to be any part of. Better to remain ignorant and shoot the messenger. For sure, Mr. Arasenko didn't want to hear it. So all were not present for this executive session debate. And that is what people are calling the closed-door session. We had a special meeting that was called for everyone to show. There was going to be an executive session. That is where disclosure of the information would have come out. So all were present for it. Last time we had an executive session, I think it was the mayor, Mr. Johns, and Mr. Duncan didn't like what they heard during that executive session, and they got up and left. So maybe they figured they would avoid that by not coming at all. After all, the majority of council had demanded that the manager do the right thing. That is true. We demanded that the manager do the right thing and make his decision. His decision. Not exactly what was expressed in the letter Mr. John shared with his media friends. And that was a correspondence from Mr. Silka to Mr. Dice. I had hoped earlier in January that Mr. Silka would have chosen the path based on what he had been presented individually by 4 members of council. The evidence was in front of him. He did not wish to act or say when he would act. This was very, very frustrating, and it places you in the position of having knowledge of wrongdoing. So what do you do with that wrongdoing? Because you wouldn't ordinarily think that, as somebody said, somebody makes a mistake. Good men make a mistake. Good women make a mistake. Good people make mistakes. So, the evidence was in front of him. He did not wish to act, and I am prohibited. I'm not going to get an explanation over why he didn't choose to act. I'm prohibited from discussing why I had to tell Mr. Silka that he must act in accordance with what he himself agreed was a danger and was wrong. This is some great transparency that I've heard here. Perception is reality that I hear here tonight, isn't it? Unilateral action, which is when council gets to do things like that, you have to ask yourself the question, when is it right and when is it wrong? It's got to stop. It's got to stop because we're toxic. And please don't act like this has not been going on for years. Back then, when they didn't like him or they didn't like her, he was out or she was out. Does it make any difference when it would be 7 members of council that would agree about that unilateral action? Nobody noticed it then. When does it stop? How does it stop? We have to talk about this as soon as we stop hating. Maybe this is the way to do it. And it's a hell of a way, but I'd like to get there. I have some ideas on how us to get there. I heard somebody mention something about that. It had to do with the way that it wouldn't be a manager's job description. I think it would actually be an amendment to the home rule charter. To try to target, how are we going to assure that we have good fidelity in everybody's vote. Is it a 5-person vote? That's a very good question. But we've got to reach that. We've also got to reach a lot of other goals that we promised people this last month to do. That's what I'm trying to do. Because right from the start of these 7 people that you see up here, the 3 never trusted the 4, when all of us should have known how important it was to have, from the start, management follow through, especially over essential services like public safety. We had better all work to fix the way that we acquire a manager who can make decisions while talking to all of council. If you think this is the first council to use this unilateral action against a manager, you need to do some homework on the action of past councils. Go down the list of ordinance. Pretend you're a detective. Start from the earliest year back and you can read, just like a novel, what happened underneath different councils. Transparency is when you don't cover up for wrongdoing. But that is exactly what was there. And I've been supportive of our chief, and I've been supportive of the chief before him, and they both knew it. What is particularly offensive to me is that any of their misdeeds are dealt with. You have a way to do it, and then you also have a way to go to the media and create an entire media blitz, courtesy of Mr. Johns, aided by Mr. Arasenko, who you can always count on to find some way to attack certain women on this council. Greg Arasenko is no stranger to reaching out when opportunity knocks. To anyone who doubts his taking the opportunity to destroy particular members of council, I suggest you check the records. Check out the DVDs from the public library during most of 2002, my first year on council. I happen to be the target of the misogyny and the belittling. Okay? Be sure not to miss the one in May and September of 2009. All right? Which, coincided with the primary and the general election. Yes, that happened to be an election year. Wait, this is an election year. In the 4 years of my enduring of verbal attacks, sometimes for my efforts, certainly this time for Mrs. Allison's, there's a common theme. It's a repulsive double standard on who has a conflict of interest. Mayor, if you would like to know what a conflict of interest for personal gain from wrongdoing looks like in Monroeville, you don't need to be interviewed by Mr. John's media friends. You need a mirror. That's what you need. In 2009, when our then manager, Marshall Bond, asked each department head to provide a hiring date order of employees when we were considering a reduction in force, Mr. Arasenko sure had the conflict with the order in which the Recreations and Parks Department fell. By his orchestrating executive session straw votes, which are not allowed, and were taken over my strong protest, this resulted in the firing of John Balicki, who was the director of that department. So, you see, if Mr. Arasenko takes the same level of interest in you as you do in him, he'll do everything he can to change your outcome for his mutual benefit. Even though, and we tell him this quite a lot, he has no executive power. Monroeville's form of municipal government, as I have reminded him, is a strong manager-council government, not a strong mayor-council government such as Pittsburgh has. This night is terrible. What makes it worse is the effort to pressure people up here, 4 people, who are trying to do the right thing. I will not be pressured that way, and I don't think Mrs. Allison will, and if I must wait for the details of a federal investigation to come from this, I will. To the constituents of the 3rd Ward, you have a right to feel any way about that decision. I'm doing what I'm legally supposed to do, and personally, I would want you to know the truth. But by the efforts of Mr. Arasenko primarily, the truth has been stained with deception. Perception is reality. I've heard it here many times tonight. It's been stained. And the real transparency, the real thing to do was the discovery that we all would have been able to do in that executive session. We would have all known. We wouldn't have said, well, I know that I just don't want anything to do with it, because your mind is made up. You didn't know what it was. You had the opportunity to know what it was. And if you need to, Mr. Mayor, perhaps we can arrange for some sensitivity training. And meanwhile, you know, a lack of transparency is at the very root of what caused all this mess. If you need a few women to show you the way, a few gentlemen to show you the way, it doesn't matter. Somebody needs to do that, and I'm through.
Nick.
Yes. Unlike many of you, I wasn't, excuse me, born and raised here in Monroeville. I made a decision with my wife to start a family here, raise our kids here, so they would be born and raised in Monroeville. I started a business here, and in order to get to this seat here, I worked really hard. I worked really hard to get to this seat to represent the members of residents of the Second Ward. And when that happened, I was very proud of myself, very proud of the accomplishments that took. But since then, that pride has been replaced by embarrassment and frustration and insult. Monroeville set up to have 7 council members. That's how our home rule charter is made up. So 7 council members representing 1/7 of the community, or so all residents are represented, and all 7 being involved with councilmatic decisions. By now, there's been enough discussion. We know the story. It was a week and a half whenever I got in that Mr. Little resigned on the request of the 4 council members, the sitting majority. And I agree that there's probably been history where these things have happened, but the actions of past councils doesn't make it right. You know, we all have to work up here as a team, as all 7. And that's how it started. And here we are again a year later, once again, the same 4, directing Mr. Silka. Motives and speculations aside, I don't want to get involved with that, nor do I care. But the fact is, the same 4 went to him without discussing with the entire council, directing him to act on Chief Cole, which he then refused. He offered to resign. A severance package, wasting taxpayers' dollars, was offered. Then the promotion of a secretary, his secretary, to interim manager. And then 2 days later, by that same secretary, our police chief is demoted in less than 24 hours, or less than 48 hours. I found out about the whole matter with these events 2 days prior to Mr. Silka's resignation. It was a Monday morning. And actually, more ridiculous, I found out about Chief Cole's demotion by a reporter from the Tribune Review on Friday evening. As far as all those events, I was not in favor of it. I had nothing to do with it. I was not involved with the discussion. I was not given the opportunity prior to his resignation to be a true representative of my ward, and I still stand behind my decision not to show up to Wednesday's meeting that was called by Mr. Erb, Mrs. Allison, and Mrs. Drumheller. And for the residents that take offense to that, I apologize. These actions have set our community back. You know, we've lost, in less than a week, lost the 2 most important positions in this municipality, the municipal manager and our chief of police. It's a demonstration of incompetence in the leadership of this community. In my opinion, it's the majority of council and their appointed interim manager that are at fault. The actions in general are wrong. They reek of mismanagement. There's no due process. And Mrs. Drumheller, you mentioned that if you need to wait till the so-called investigation is complete for Chief Cole, I think that's a great idea, and perhaps we should consider reinstating him to police chief until that investigation is fully completed. If it really truly is, if this all comes down to a so-called HIPAA violation, which our solicitor says that it was not, I happen to deal with HIPAA in my professional life. It's something that I do every day. I've been involved with it since its inception. It was started in '96, and it was enacted in 2002, 2003. So perhaps we should wait till this investigation is complete, if that is the main reason why we are demoting our police chief. And to speak of that demotion, the manner that Chief Cole was demoted was by a letter delivered to his house on a Friday evening by an officer, by one of his subordinates. It is unprofessional. It is an insult to a man who dedicated the majority of his life to this community. That we cannot even bring him into our office, to the manager's office, and talk to him face to face. I have a very small business, very, very small business. I do have employees. And anytime there's ever been a promotion, a raise, a demotion, or a termination, you do it face to face. It's management 101. It's insulting. I fully support Doug Cole. And for the sake of the community and stability of this municipality, I really feel that he should be reinstated as police chief until the investigation is complete, and furthermore, until we do have a full-time manager. I understand that by the rules, yes, the interim manager does have all the powers that the manager does. However, most people, when they think about an interim manager or someone that's covering, that person is to keep the ship afloat. Depend on the department heads and not make drastic changes. To the vast majority of municipal employees, I'm sorry that you have to work under this leadership. There certainly are a lot of good, hard workers that take pride in their jobs, and these events do nothing but undermine morale. That is every department, is every worker. That goes from the police department to public works, to all the clerical people, everyone that receives a paycheck from this municipality. To the residents, this council certainly needs to do better. We need to work together. It certainly takes 4 votes, and we all know that. That's been covered many, many times, but it's not a 4-member council. It's not. All 7 should be involved with the discussions that affect this community. We need to hire a manager, and when we do, we need to be council members, not administrators, not managers ourselves. A resident said at the last meeting that council has failed to hire a candidate that can last the long term. I agree, but it's not a failure of the hiring process. 2 managers resigning within a year, I believe it's the majority of council and a few employees that are the problem. It doesn't matter who we get. If, we could get the top CEO in America. Does not matter. If that person's micromanaged or if that person's threatened by a majority of council, they can certainly terminate him or her. Although this is an embarrassment, I feel, and a setback to this community, I truly still believe that Monroeville is a great place to live, and it's a great place to work. It's a place where I chose to start a business and raise a family. There's a lot of positive things happening in Monroeville. I just hope that this council can work better. I hope that morale can be boosted amongst the employees. I hope residents can feel more comfortable with their community. And I will continue to do my best for this town. And I truly hope that all 7 council members can put personal agendas aside and really do what's best for Monroeville. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Vern.
I don't have any written notes for what I'm going to say. I met with the former manager alone for breakfast on Saturday morning. We had a rather in-depth conversation. Part of that conversation, the things that, the concerns that have been raised by to other members of council, those happened, I had those discussions with the manager. I asked the manager a very simple thing because his typical response has been, since I started having certain discussions with him, the HIPAA thing in October, but there are a lot more concerns that he expressed to me and that I expressed to him over the months. And any time he has been asked for answers on many things, his response was soon. I told him something very simple on that Saturday. I said, soon's not on the calendar. Monday is. And I need you to take control of the building on Monday. He did not have control of this building. I may have just really hurt Bruce in terms of our agreement, but that's my opinion. And I expressed that to him, that I did not think he had control of this building. And I told him if he was unable or unwilling to do something on Monday, that I would advertise, me, nobody else, I would sponsor for a public hearing 10 days hence on Tuesday. I had that conversation with him. I can't speak to what anybody else said. I did have a phone call with him, and then I guess I know from talking to other members of council that they met with him, but I spoke to him on a Saturday. Mr. Serafini, I appreciate and thank you for offering to change a position here or there. I cannot. I did what I am absolutely required to do under the Charter, under the Pennsylvania Constitution, under the United States Constitution, and under natural law. It was recorded in the newspaper that I said there would be blood on our hands if he did nothing. I wasn't talking figuratively. I meant that one of our police officers would die. We have a heroin problem in this town. We do not have a control over the crime issues in this town. Somebody will die if we did not address things. I fully expected that he would do something. He interviewed as though he were a man that took names, knew how to take charge, and ran things. That's how he interviewed. I fully expected him to throw me out of the diner, and I was paying. The protection of these, of you, our residents, and I appreciate that a lot of you came up today and you support Doug Cole. I said nothing to the interim manager about Doug Cole. I received a packet, which I don't receive anymore because the police officers don't like delivering packets to council people. Do you know why? Does anybody up here know why? I'll tell you why. Because they've been written up for delivering them on Saturdays because councilmen have a conniption over it. They've been written up for putting it in a mailbox instead of where the council person expects it. They're not delivery boys. They're police officers. They're supposed to protect you. So I did what I had to do. And if anyone wants to blame anybody, blame me. I did this. It had nothing to do with Mrs. Allison, with her husband, with anything else. I fully expected the manager to stand up and do his job, and that's what I asked him to do. And I did tell him I would advertise if he did not. I never asked him to take a single punitive action against anybody. He has plenty of actions and plenty of opportunities to take control of his office, his building. There are plenty of things he can do within the auspices of the employee handbook and within the auspices of all the laws that pertain to it. I appreciate that all of you have actually taken the time to stay here, wondering if we were going to be sphinx-like or whether we were going to talk. And for the record, I said that I was not capricious. I lost sleep over this. I was not capricious. This was very thoughtful on my part because I love Monroeville. Like Dr. Grieshock, I moved here. It was a blue ribbon school when we decided to move here. I fell in love with this place. I raised a family here. My kids didn't get born here. They were 6 years old and 5 years old when they moved here. But nonetheless, I moved them here. So I don't apologize for my actions. I did what I did because I believed it was the right thing for the safety of this community. And that is fundamental to the job. I'd like to change gears just a little bit because there's been a lot of discussion about the lack of qualifications of our interim manager. One of the most powerful leaders that I've ever worked for took a job from a guy that had a bachelor's degree in business and was running a $400 million United States business. He was charged with running a $700 million multinational business, and he had a GED. This was for a public company, not in the U.S., but it was a public company. It was a South African company that had acquired a U.S. company. And he did a better job than the person with the degree. I have a master's. Degrees don't mean that you have the fortitude to manage things. They don't mean that you have the fortitude to fire somebody, discipline somebody, not fire somebody, but talk to them. Put them on administrative leave. Do lots of things that exist. All I asked was that he do his job. I'm fully confident that I could ask him to do his job. I did not want a resignation from him. I was floored when I heard that we had been given a resignation. I didn't ask for it. I asked him to do his job. And that's all I could do. So I would do it again because I care about this community and I care about the employees of this community. I care about you as residents. It's that simple. I realize a lot of you disagree with me, and you all spoke, and I thank you for speaking. I can only do what I believe is right. So, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to give it back to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, first off, I want to apologize for getting upset at one of Mrs. Allison's comments. As you all know, as elected officials, and especially when we sit up here, you can just about say anything, and you're protected by law. In regards to me attacking them, did anybody hear Mrs. Allison or Mrs. Drumheller attack me? Or was I the only one in the room that heard that? I have never looked at Mrs. Allison or Mrs. Drumheller as women that I need to play with. I'm going to be very honest with you. At my job with my development company, the hotel that my company owns here in Monroeville is the overwhelming majority of females that work here, from our general manager down. I would challenge anybody to take a walk over there and ask them how I treat them as women, as employees, period. I have a long-standing career as a labor leader in the Department of Veterans Affairs with probably 50% female, 50% male. I challenge anybody in this room. Highland Drive still is open. A lot of those folks are retired like me, but there are still many that remember me. I challenge anybody say that I mistreated or abused females. It's really sad we've gone to a new low here in Monroeville. Now they're saying that I'm just beating up on anybody because of their female. I look at Mrs. Allison or Mrs. Drumheller as colleagues up here, and we certainly have some heated discussions. If you all remember when Mr. Kuchar was here, and Mr. Ober and I have had some discussions. And Mrs. Drumheller was correct. I don't have a vote up here. This is a strong manager council form of government. But you, and I've said it many times, I answer to not one soul up here. I only answer to you, the residents. And I have a voice for you. And if I feel that there's inappropriate things going on, you're going to hear from me. And what has happened here, and all this things going on, if I had to do it again today, I would do it again today, as I said earlier. If I feel there's underhandedness, if there's backdoor deals going on, I will bring it to you. We talk about having transparency. Go up to the manager's office right now. All the blinds are closed tight, can't see in. What are they hiding? Okay? Never was that way before in the 5 years I've been here. Okay? You think about all the negativity. Yeah, you know what? Ladies and gentlemen, I am very sorry that I had to do what I had to do, but I'm sorry that I did it. I'm just sorry that it's so negative on Monroeville. I guess that's a better way of putting that. I care very deeply about Monroeville. Like many of you here, I have raised 2 of my 3 children here from infancy through the Gateway School District. And I still agree with some comments. I think Mr. Griesach said it best. There's still so many positive things. It would be my hope that we can start getting along better up here. But more importantly, you're the judge out there. There is an election coming. You will make the final decision. Nobody up here, you will. I've always said, you're the boss. You're who I have to answer to. And as long as I sit here, I will defend this municipality. I will defend people like Chief Doug Cole, because it's the right thing to do. I will have a lot more to say on Tuesday at my report. Depending on what this council does and says, they can attack me. It's okay. You know what, folks? That's politics 101. I expect it. I'm shocked that they don't. If they can't take the heat in the kitchen, get out. If we fight with each other, that's if we disagree, That's good for you, because you know what? Not one person up here has all the answers. I don't, and none of them do either. Collectively, if we're working together, we may move this forward. But because of the actions of the four majority, I couldn't agree with said, and I believe it was you, Dr. Griesau. We are again another 12 months put behind. We've gotten rid of 2 managers in less than 2 years. I'll have more report on the finances. I will give you the exact numbers of what it cost from last year's removal of Mr. Little and this year's removal combined with the proposed raise by some on this to our interim manager that are saying, we have to watch our money. Beat us up brutally, saying we're spending money that we shouldn't spend and we're just throwing it out by the buckets full. That's the same gentleman that, I'm talking about Mr. Erb, that proposed that we give a $30,000 plus raise, plus voted for the $67,500 to the interim manager. Folks, it is my job to bring you the truth, and I am in every intention on doing that. I would prefer it that none of this existed, but in regards to what Mrs. Allison and all the allegations she said is not true, I did not write that memo to Mr. Dice on her saying to Mr. Silka, you either get rid of Doug or you're gone. I didn't write that. I did not write that. Mr. Silka did. And he told Mr. Dice to send it out to everybody on council. If he wouldn't have done that, I'd have never known that existed. Folks, I didn't do any of this. I don't think any of my other 3 colleagues did any of this. I didn't put that in black and white. You needed to know that. And I assure you, this is not over by a long shot. Hopefully we can work this together and keep us out of the media. It's a damn shame. I heard from our county exec. You know what Mr. Fitzgerald said to me? Gee, Mayor. He almost thanked me for taking the county out of the news. We've become the #1 news. That's not a very positive statement, but it's a very true statement. Believe it or not, I have offered the olive branch more than once to our deputy mayor. And I'm going to say it again tonight. I'm going to offer it again. I would like to work with all 7 of them. We really do have the business of the people, your business, to keep moving forward. Thank you for your time. Thank you for coming out. I will hold more comments until Tuesday when I see how this council votes on all the various ordinances before you. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Oh,
Executive
no,
session.
I just looked down. Ladies and gentlemen, we do have an executive session. It's Police Department retirees update, the lawsuit update, and personnel matters. Is there a motion to go to executive session?
Motion to move there.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.